sex, intercourse, coitus, and so on, no matter the label, all essentially refer to the same matter at hand, the act of sex. With modern technological advances, sex in all its forms has become easier to access than ever before. The most accessible form of sex is currently found in online pornography. Today, I will be discussing the reality of porn addiction, and I will then move on to its negative impacts on personal relationships and mental health. There are biological, psychological, and social factors which play into the popularity of sex and erotica. So as humans in a modern society which banks on these phenomena, it is important to be aware of what these factors are and how to regulate them. I believe that I'm qualified to report on this topic after spending 4 years in high school taking wellness classes, which focused on all the ins and outs of adolescent sexuality and porn use. After all, this tends to be a major byproduct of puberty. So to share this information with you, I will first detail the neurocircuit, which is often associated with addiction, apply this concept to one's personal life and relationships, and end with the eventual decline in mental health. So, first, how is it possible to actually develop an addiction to porn? Well, the internet provides a seemingly infinite virtual catalog of content, allowing porn to be consumed around the clock. According to statistics gathered by psychologist Michael Castleman, porn sites attract more visitors than Amazon, Netflix, and Twitter combined. David Ludin, along with a team of other research psychologists, agreed to define excessive engagement as more than 7 sexual acts leading to orgasm per week. And those who seek help for such an addiction tend to fall within that range. But despite the extreme increase in patients seeking help from clinicians, current literature remains unsure about how to define this addiction's diagnostic criteria. So in 2017, 2 scientists or researchers at a medical college in Mumbai produced a clinical review on the neurobiology of porn addiction. They first defined the basic neurocircuit of addiction as involving a mesolimbic pathway originating from the area responsible for reward and motivation, which then projects into the neural interface between motivation and action. All of this combined forms the reward circuit. And the activation of this circuit occurs when an individual compulsively and chronically watches pornographic content, much like it would when a drug addict would engage in the use of drugs. So this is how it's proven that porn can be addictive. And in the adolescent brain, which is in a very vulnerable state of development, is especially susceptible to addiction. So I will now talk about how this may affect their personal relationships. Many self-declared addicts claim to have begun watching porn as early as 11 years old. As teenagers mature and develop into young adults, so much of their identity is influenced by external factors. So why not porn? Psych Central's Madeline Brown reported on a 2022 study which found that 63 to 68% of teens have watched some form of porn in their lifetime. Teens were surveyed about their particular motivation for seeking porn, and those who were still in the earlier stages of sexual maturation said that they often watched porn for educational purposes. And when considering the target audience, porn usually caters to those who crave instant gratification. Unfortunately, normalcy does not always do the trick. One of porn's greatest lures is its ability to play into fantasy and sexual fantasies. And a large portion of this content is created by professional production companies. And these pornos often promote scenarios such as pseudo-incest and or consensual abuse, which are hopefully less likely to occur in the viewer's real life. So when a teenager turns to porn for a model of sex, they are at risk of being exposed to content that is not meant to emulate reality. With the majority of teens being exposed to such material during adolescent development, this can lead to misconceptions of what real sex is, and thus causing unrealistic expectations for future relationships. As a consequence, as they begin to engage in partnered sexual activity themselves, they may have a false perception of the appropriate behavior expected by their partner. The majority of incidents involving one-sided porn use in relationships often leads to separation. Addiction often pushes the individual into internal isolation, and when confession breaks through, that isolation only grows. So what does porn addiction look like for the isolated individual and their mental health? Well, Dr. Grant Hillary Brenner at Psychology Today reported on a study in which they found that porn was significantly associated with loneliness. In addition, loneliness was significantly associated with porn use, suggesting a two-way relationship. In fact, for each unit of porn use, loneliness increased significantly by a factor of 0.2, and for each unit of loneliness, porn increased by a factor of 0.16. Like seen in victims of drug addiction, those with compulsive sexual behavior reported higher levels of desire and tendency towards sexually explicit content, despite reports of a decrease in enjoyment. According to BBC Future's Jessica Brown, this is known as incentive motivation. Addicts seek their addiction as a result of forming a habit that was initially accompanied by reward, not because they necessarily continue to or enjoy it. Not necessarily because they continue to want or enjoy it. Albert Einstein defined insanity as performing the same action over and over again while expecting to yield different results. When it comes to the inevitable dilution of dopamine in the addiction neurocircuit, the individual repeats the same action while hoping for the same initial result, as the given result, which is the changing level of reward, does differentiate, decreases. And this still causes significant distress in the brain, and though it may not always lead to insanity, this cycle of behavior can lead to a state of depression, which is further worsened by isolation. So I have now informed you of the inevitable decline in mental health, which can be caused by porn addiction, bringing us to the near end of the speech. My goal today is not to villainize pornography, but instead to persuade you to believe that excessive use of such material can ultimately be harmful. I did so by discussing the validity of porn addiction, followed by details of negative impacts such an addiction can have on personal relationships and mental health. The solution to porn addiction is not to eradicate porn, but instead to educate the public on how to balance and maintain a healthy lifestyle that can still include watching porn. Because like any other of life's indulgences, balance is key. So, is it time to possibly reconsider any of your guilty